speed bump. Yeah, so talking about sexual molestation as a child is not an easy thing. I remember when the first time that I preached on this, I was preaching on 1 John chapter 1 about walking in the light, and I used this as an example. I can't quite clearly remember whether I was 3 or 4, but around that time, I was sexually molested as a little kid. All right? Now, some of you, this is like so shocking, but in preaching classes, they tell us, so you better start off with like super crazy examples that would catch the people's attention. So I hope that you're really paying attention to this. Now, if I go into the details of what really happened, it would just be sinful talking about every single detail. But back in Georgia, which kind of like somewhat reminded me, scripturally of what really happened physically, is that like there's nothing cool about the darkness. It's very similar. Like when I want to sin, when I want to chase the desires of my flesh, desires of the world, I go back to that moment in life, in that alleyway, in that apartment stairway, and I'm like, well, spiritually, I don't want to be there. Like, I really don't want to be there because that's a very dark part of my life. Like, God, I don't want to be there, Lord. So help me be in the light that I can always walk in the light where I'm safe, knowing that you got me covered. But it's a pretty dark moment, and, as I reflect on kind of how I've managed to use that in my music. But first talking about it through music, I was able to talk about it more openly with others. I mean, the first time I ever hit the subject was on my previous album, Foreign Recipes Domestically Made, and a song called Monsters.
Kids these days. Here they go again, monsters that have appeared to me in early childhood when my innocence was smeared. Truly as I believe the lie that they will satisfy with proposals from which I could die from. They all exist.
And in that song, honestly, everything was very metaphorical. Metaphorically written, pretty dark, very kind of raw, but metaphorical, that people did not really, would not really expect that I'm actually writing a story about myself, or maybe I'm just hitting some points of truth. But, with this album, I'm much more raw and open with transparency, where I did not want to hide these things in such metaphors. I wanted to be as blunt, as open, as real as I could be without putting any metaphors on it, because of the message that follows after, which is the message of redemption through Jesus, which is freedom that you have through Jesus, who takes away all of our gunk, all of our sin away, all of our messes away. It takes the shame away because of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So therefore, by speaking about as direct as I could, it makes the gospel message to be as direct and clear as it could be in the light of such filth, in the light of such bad portion of my life, which obviously impacted in many ways. As I think about it, as I reflect on it, and how I matured as a young adult and teenager adult, and which areas it impacted me in life. But it's not like that's going to shape my identity. That's the big reality, is that many times we live in the past, live by those things that happened in the past, where it's written, we should live by faith. Faith is what gives us freedom. Faith is what gives us redemption. Faith in Jesus Christ. So talking about this in the song called Cleared List, breaks up the taboos very quick. It being the very first thing that I mentioned, grasps the listener's attention into pretty much a chronological story of like all my kind of list of sins. There was a lot more that I didn't mention, obviously, because due to the nature of the time. It quickly got turned into a 9-minute song, but the whole point and my thing that I pray and hope for is that people, Christians and non-Christians, even non-Christians, we start breaking out of our box in terms of being real, and by being real and open about these things, then we will give a window for others to serve us and to help us out, to aid us in those things, and because healing is needed so much. I pray that it will encourage and allow people to kind of break out of their boxes and seek the truth, because that truth is found in Jesus, who clears all that away and offers himself as a replacement of all that gunk. So I even talked about these issues with others, and it's very alarmingly surprising of how many people, even within the church, have been molested as little kids, and we just put a blindfold over it, and we just don't talk about it, and it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem, within the world. I mean, as wretched as it all seems. So what I truly believe is that by doing that is gonna open kind of a new level of authenticity within our faith, within our religion, and within kind of what we believe, in order that we can actually be there carrying each other's burdens compassionately, lift each other up, and through prayer and just intercession, by being there for the brother or sister. So whatever might have been your case, whatever might be your story, the gospel is so much better than that, and we should not be shamed about any of our past, knowing that Jesus is so good, offering us something that nothing could offer us, which is that complete freedom, and joy after all the whackness, after all the filthiness and wretchedness. He gives us complete joy. So at the end of it all, man, I'm just joyful that even I've gotten the boldness to be able to do that as a result of believing in the gospel even more. So that same thing I want to encourage others. That same thing I want to wish to others, is that they be open, real, and when they hear things like this, not like really, like not back up, because very intentionally, unintentionally, this is our natural reaction, but have the most straightest face you can have, and listen to the person and love them, love on them, and just see, how can I serve that person, how can I help that person be restored. And that's the ultimate goal when we hear of things like these. Yeah, man. Positive convictions, man. It's about being convicted about the hardships and hard realities of life and personal life, things. But at the end, the result, reaping positive fruit. And that positive fruit is righteousness. That positive fruit is joy and freedom in Jesus Christ. That's what positive convictions is all about.